Imagine you're standing on a quiet December night in 1811, somewhere along the Mississippi frontier. No cars, no city lights, no engines humming, just the crackle of a wooden cabin fire and the whisper of cold winter wind. Families are asleep. The river is calm, and America, still young, still wild, still unsure of its future, sleeps peacefully. But in the next 60 seconds, everything is about to change. At 2:15 a.m., the ground below the central United States begins to vibrate, softly at first, like a wagon rumbling far away. People turn in their beds, dogs rise, confused, horses grow restless, the vibrations grow stronger, deeper, heavier, until suddenly the earth doesn't just shake. It explodes. A sound like cannon fire from underground roars through Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, and Arkansas. Homes crack, trees whip back and forth like blades of grass. And then something happens that no one in America had ever seen before. The Mississippi River begins to rise. It bulges, it lifts, and it flows backwards. For a moment, the river defies physics, defies gravity, defies everything people thought they understood about the natural world. It surges north against its own current, as if an invisible hand is dragging it uphill. Boats snap from their moorings and shoot upstream. Entire sections of the riverbank crumble and fall into the water. People stumble out of their shaking cabins, screaming into the cold night. The stars above blur as the horizon itself begins to move. Some believe it's Judgment Day. Others believe the end of the world has arrived. And in many ways, it has, because this isn't a normal earthquake. This isn't California. This isn't a fault line people understood. This is the new Madrid fault, buried beneath the heart of the United States, a monster sleeping under farmland and quiet towns. And tonight, in the year 1811, that monster wakes up. The quake rips through the continent with unimaginable force, so strong that church bells ring 1,000 miles away in Boston, Washington, D.C., even parts of Canada. Buildings sway on the East Coast as if touched by ghostly hands. Chimneys collapse in Ohio. People rush outside in Pittsburgh. The shaking reaches almost to the Atlantic Ocean. But for the frontier towns along the Mississippi, the destruction is far worse, almost apocalyptic. A strange blue-white light flashes from cracks in the ground. Earthquake lightning. Sand geysers erupt from the earth, blasting fountains of mud dozens of feet into the air. Entire forests are swallowed by liquefaction, the soil turning into quicksand beneath people's feet. The air smells like sulfur. The sky turns dusty. The ground refuses to stop moving. And as waves continue to roll through the Mississippi, a new horror appears. A giant section of land sinks, forming a dark, rising pool of water. A lake that wasn't there the day before. This is how Reelfoot Lake is born, created not over centuries, but in mere minutes of violent shaking. People try to pray. Some try to run. Others freeze in place, unable to understand what is happening, because they don't know a terrifying truth. This is only the first quake. 2 more, even stronger, are coming. Tonight is just the beginning. The new Madrid fault is stretching, tearing, preparing to unleash something America has never experienced before. And no one alive in 1811 can imagine the scale of destruction that the next few months will bring. The Mississippi River continues to boil and churn backward as the first aftershocks strike. Trees uproot, animals flee, Entire towns disappear beneath collapsing soil. Frontier settlers write letters describing the earth moving like the ocean, rising and falling in great waves beneath their feet. And deep underground, a titanic force is building pressure, spreading across hundreds of miles, waiting for the exact moment to snap again. They say the ground rumbled like distant thunder. They say the land cracked open wide enough to swallow houses. They say the river screamed, literally screamed, as if alive. If you were alive on that night, you wouldn't have forgotten it, because the earth didn't just shake, it changed. And by dawn, America realized something horrifying. The Mississippi River was still flowing backwards, and no one knew why. Dawn rises slowly over the Mississippi Valley, but sunlight doesn't bring comfort, it only reveals the damage. A thick haze hangs over the land, turning the horizon a sickly yellow. Smoke drifts from collapsed chimneys, trees lie broken like matchsticks, and the river. The river looks wrong. Instead of its usual smooth current, the water churns in violent circles. Whirlpools big enough to pull down entire boats. Dead fish float by the hundreds. Muddy waves slap against the banks, like the river is breathing unevenly, struggling to calm itself after the night's chaos. People stand on the shore in disbelief. They've seen floods, storms, wild animals, the brutal reality of frontier life, but nothing like this. Nothing that makes the entire world feel unstable, like the ground beneath their feet has betrayed them. Settlers gather in groups, whispering, praying, arguing about what happened. Some claim the land opened up wide enough for a wagon to fall in. Others say they saw fire shoot out of the ground. A few swear they heard a grotesque animal-like roar deep beneath the earth. One man writes in his journal, "It felt like the world had slipped off its foundations and was struggling to find them again." But even as people try to understand what they've survived, the earth is still shifting. The aftershocks continue, small tremors at first, then sudden, violent jolts that knock people to the ground. Every few hours, the valley shivers, groans, or cracks like a frozen lake in spring. People can't sleep, animals won't settle. Even the river refuses to behave. And then rumors begin to spread. Rumors that the quake wasn't the worst of it. Rumors that something bigger is coming. Rumors that the entire Mississippi Valley is ripping open like a rotten seam. No one has proof, but everyone can feel it. The ground feels restless, alive. The river feels angry, dangerous. The air feels heavy, like the atmosphere itself is waiting. And the fear grows with every hour. 3 days after the first quake, the sky darkens unexpectedly. A cold front moves in, bringing a biting wind that cuts through clothing like knives. The river valley becomes eerily silent. Even birds refuse to sing. Settlers pause their work, sensing something is wrong. A deep rumble begins, low, distant, like thunder miles away. But this is no storm. The sound grows louder, deeper, heavier, until it feels like the air itself is vibrating. People look at each other, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Children start crying. Dogs whine and hide beneath wagons. And then the ground erupts again. The second quake hits, not just stronger than the first, twice as powerful. Cabins explode into splinters as the earth heaves upward in massive waves. Huge cracks zigzag across the ground, racing faster than horses can run. Entire fields tilt and drop several feet. A church collapses mid-service, sending worshippers scattering through a storm of dust and falling timber. the Mississippi River experiences something even more terrifying. The water pulls away from the bank, as if inhaling, exposing mud, roots, and shattered boats. Then it crashes back with explosive force. A wall of water slams into the shoreline, flooding cabins, uprooting trees, sweeping away fences, animals, wagons, everything. People try to climb to higher ground, but the land itself is rising and falling like a living creature beneath them. The river reverses again, not gently this time, but violently, surging north with the force of a tidal wave. Boats anchored near New Madrid are ripped free and shot upstream like toys. Eyewitnesses describe it as the river standing up. The roar is deafening, louder than thunder, louder than a storm, louder than anything people in 1811 had ever heard. Families cling to each other, screaming prayers as the ground bucks like a ship in a hurricane. And in the midst of this chaos, something surreal happens. Huge plumes of sand explode from the earth, fountains 20, 30, even 40 feet high, coating the landscape in pale dust. They're called sand blows, but to the people of 1811, they look like geysers from hell. Chunks of land separate and drift like islands. Forests tilt sideways. The sky fills with a choking mixture of dust, ash, and river mist. And just when it seems like the world cannot break apart any further, it stops, suddenly, completely, like someone pressed pause on the destruction. A silence descends, so unnatural that it terrifies people even more. The river stops fighting. The trees stop shaking. The ground holds still beneath weary feet. But no one celebrates. No one relaxes. No one believes it's over. Because they all remember the stories from 3 nights ago. How the first quake wasn't the last. And this second one, this monster, feels like something in the earth has snapped loose. Like something big has been awakened. And deep under the soil, under the river, under the entire central United States, the new Madrid fault continues to stretch, groan, and prepare for one more colossal strike. People gather in makeshift camps, afraid to enter what remains of their homes. The nights are freezing, but no one dares sleep indoors. Parents keep their children close, whispering comforting lies they barely believe. And across America, in cities hundreds of miles away, strange things begin to happen. Church bells sway back and forth, ringing on their own. Water in wells sloshes violently. Animals become frantic. People report feeling dizzy or nauseous, like the earth beneath them is moving even when it isn't. The entire country can feel it. Something enormous is coming, and when it finally arrives, it will be the strongest quake in U.S. history. The night before it happens is unnervingly quiet. People in the Mississippi Valley barely sleep. They sit around small fires, wrapped in blankets, listening to the dark. Every crack of a branch, every rush of wind, every distant animal call makes hearts jump. After the last 2 quakes, no one trusts the earth anymore. No one knows when the next blow will strike, only that it will. The river drags itself along like a wounded giant. Debris floats on its surface, pieces of homes, uprooted trees, shattered boats. The moon hangs pale and watchful above it all, as if even the sky is waiting for whatever comes next. Somewhere shortly after 4 a.m., animals begin acting strangely again. Horses stomp the ground nervously. Dogs howl at the sky with their ears pinned back. Birds take off as if fleeing something invisible. People wake up instantly, because by now they've learned to read the warning signs. A woman whispers, "It's coming," and she's right. Deep beneath the center of the continent, far below the soil, the clay, the bedrock pressure that has been building for centuries reaches its limit. The earth cracks, the fault ruptures, and the third quake begins, not with a jolt, not with a rumble, not with a warning, with a detonation. A violent explosion of energy surges upward through the crust. The ground doesn't just shake, it erases stability, tearing the landscape in every direction. People are thrown from their feet instantly. Wagons flip, campfires scatter embers across the cold ground. Within seconds, the shaking intensifies into something unimaginable. Cabins twist apart like cardboard. Trees snap at the base. Giant waves ripple through the soil. Visible waves rolling across fields and forests like liquid earth. People scream, but their voices vanish into a deafening roar. And then the river reacts. The Mississippi doesn't just reverse this time. It erupts. A massive surge of water blasts upward, as if the riverbed has been punched from below. Eyewitnesses describe boiling water, whirlpools spinning so violently that entire trees vanish into them. The riverbanks collapse. In some places, the land drops suddenly, swallowing entire sections of shoreline. In others, the ground rises, forming brand new hills and ridges where flat land existed hours ago. Islands appear, lakes appear. A new landscape is being created in real time, and the people of 1811 are standing in the middle of it. In the town of New Madrid, what's left of the streets becomes an obstacle course of debris, fallen chimneys, shattered roofs, and gaping holes. The ground won't stay still long enough for anyone to run. Parents cling to children. Strangers cling to strangers. The sky is thick with dust, turning lantern light into weak orange halos. The quake doesn't stop after a minute. It doesn't stop after 2. It keeps going for minutes, 5, 6, an eternity of violence. People vomit from the motion sickness. Horses collapse. Entire forests sway as if caught in an enormous, invisible tide. The world feels unanchored, like the continent itself is loose. And then something extraordinary happens. In the middle of the shaking, somewhere north of town, the ground buckles upward and creates a natural dam. Water rushes in behind it, filling depressions carved by the quake. Within hours, a brand new lake exists, Reelfoot Lake, born in violence. The native tribes interpret it as the land crying out. The settlers see it as a physical reminder that the earth is far more powerful than anything they ever imagined. Hundreds of miles away, the effects are still astonishing. In Louisville, church bells ring so violently they crack. In Pittsburgh, buildings sway. In Cincinnati, the shaking wakes the entire city. And over 1,000 miles away, in Boston, people feel their beds shift. The eastern half of the continent becomes a single vibrating landscape, a massive plate of stone humming with released energy. Nothing like it has been felt since nothing like it has happened again. The United States is still young, just 35 years old, and already it's facing a disaster so powerful it seems almost mythic. Finally, after what feels like the longest minutes in American history, the shaking weakens. Slowly, unevenly, unwillingly, the ground settles. Silence falls again, but not the relieved silence after a storm. This is a dead, drained, exhausted silence, like the world is too tired to make another sound. People emerge from hiding places, shaking, crying, covered in dust. Many stare at the altered landscape around them in shock. Roads no longer lead where they did. The riverbank no longer exists in familiar shapes. New hills, new lakes, new fault scars ripple across the valley. Some write letters describing it as the night hell reached up and tried to pull the earth inside out. But even after the main quake ends, the nightmare doesn't, because the aftershocks continue. Small ones, medium ones, sometimes strong ones, thousands of them, for months. People sleep outside. They move their beds into fields. They stop building chimneys because they know they will fall again. Everyone is tired. Everyone is terrified. Everyone is changed. The Mississippi Valley will never be the same again. And the strangest part, scientists today believe the new Madrid fault is still active, still under pressure, still capable of producing another monster. Not as big as 1811 to 1812, but still catastrophic. Still powerful enough to devastate the Midwest. Still powerful enough to shake American cities from St. Louis to Memphis. Still powerful enough to remind the modern world that nature hasn't forgotten what it can do. The night the Mississippi flowed backwards wasn't just a disaster. It was a warning written into the land itself. A warning carved into rivers, forests, and human memory. A warning that still whispers beneath the soil of America. Because the fault that once tore the continent apart is still there, still alive, still waiting.